Welcome to the Long Beach City College Political Action Coalition interviews of Board of Trustee candidates for the Long Beach Community College District. This coalition consists of representation from the full-time Faculty Political Action Committee, the part-time faculty union, and classified staff union. You will be given 1 hour to answer our 15 questions. Let us begin with introductions. My name is Janae Hunt. I am a full-time Faculty Political Action Committee Chair and Sociology Professor.
Catherine Jennings, PAC Liaison and Reading Department.
Hi. Jonathan Ekman, LAC Campus Rep, AFT.
Susan Trask, Communications Officer for the AFT.
Thomas Hamilton, AFT, President, Classified Employees.
Mildred Cepeda, Counselor and a PAC member.
Carolyn Sable, part-time, Health Department.
Jen Nellis, Vice Chair, English.
Karen Roberts, part-time, Art Department.
Good afternoon, and I'll go first. Question number 1, explain 3 tangible improvements that you would like to see at Long Beach City College.
Well, this is going to come up in another question, but I think one of the first things I'd like to see would be an understanding of and adherence to shared governance structures. It's quite evident from what I hear, and my wife happens to work here too, that there have been breakdowns in governance structures, it seems that for years. And I think actually, well, I know this does lead into another question. There's often a misunderstanding on many sides on what shared governance consists of. One crucial element is that those involved in these processes have to have a certainty that their voice will have an impact on decisions that are made. You know, albeit some decisions are made primarily by faculty ultimately, and some by managers. And it's crucial, and I think this comes from administrators and from the board, that not only are the formal processes in place, but there is an atmosphere in which people are, I think maybe more than encouraged, but are welcomed and brought into sort of an open dialogue in which their contributions are recognized and are welcomed. And that kind of bleeds into a second question, or sorry, an answer I have, which is that I think I'd like to see a greater level of ordinary friendliness and collegiality. I know that there are other issues that the union would be very concerned with concerning, say, pay and benefits, but for the well-being of the campus, I think it really is incumbent upon its leaders to create environments which are friendly and welcoming. And I'm talking something in addition to formal shared governance procedures. I would like this to be a warm and happy environment. And I know, well, you're asking here this question for tangible, and this is sort of softer than just tangible. But you know, as you've seen from my resume, I'm a dean, and in my division, my staff, I think that they want to work here forever, because it's not that I am an extrovert who puts my arms around people. I don't. I am, probably as a parent at this point even, I'm a shy man, but I have just a nice workplace. Like, for example, I know this is semi-tangible. In my office, I have a bunch of plants. And why do I have plants? Well, because I want the staff and the faculty to come in to talk to me to feel as if they're entering into a human environment. And I think that this kind of of atmosphere across campus is really essential. And I'm thinking for those of you who are in what I consider to be a more powerful position, and these would be tenured faculty, that's one thing. But what about those of you who are part-timers, which I was, by the way, for 7 years. And for 7 years, I felt like a ghost. You know, I'd come in when people were gone, and I'd be given a course outline, and I was given usually no help about how to do this. And even though, you know, like all of you, I was dedicated to the work I had before me, this wasn't really a welcoming environment from the point of view of part-time instructors. And I think that, that this is one of the things that I'd like to see more fully established on this campus. Again, related to this, talk about tangible, because of that 7-year experience, I'm onto my third point here, I do have a special sensitivity to the working conditions of adjunct faculty. And I think that they are shamefully underpaid. And it is, I think, a national disgrace that they, like many people, don't have health insurance. And I'd like to secure for part-timers dignity, let's say, and something approaching fairness in compensation. And I realize there's another question about budget, and there's certain limits involved here, but still, it's just as a shame. So in lieu of time, I think I've taken a lot on question 1.
Thank you. Number 2, in the past, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges and Accreditation Commission for Community Colleges and Junior Colleges teams found a lack of communication and collaboration between administration, faculty at LBCC. Recently, the CCA president has stated that morale at Long Beach City College is at an all-time low. How might this situation be improved? And what is the role of the Board of Trustees in bringing about a change?
Well, I think it requires an understanding of and a recommitment to communication processes. I happen at the college where I work to be working on accreditation standard for a C, which deals just with this specific issue. And I think that at Cerritos College we have quite a different situation and atmosphere. I mean, I think frankly, our president is well-intended, but having said that, she is not perfect either. And I've discovered that her idea, and I've discovered this, you know, as a dean, that her idea of effective communication and mine don't completely match. Like, she is very good at having certain scheduled forums and opportunities for people to express viewpoints, but in an academic institution which is so grounded in concepts of shared governance, communication is a dialogue. You know, and that's the part that I think needs to be understood. And this requires some work. I've spent 20-some years in the classroom, and for those of you who teach, you know that on the first day of class, when you tell somebody to talk, it doesn't mean that they're going to, because the instructor may not have had time yet to establish the atmosphere. I think that the administration and the Board of Trustees has a lot of control, that's the wrong word, a lot of ability to influence the nature of communication. So the thing is that for somebody to communicate, one needs to feel invited and comfortable to express ideas that may be hard to hear, painful, and critical. And people need to be able to feel enabled to do this regardless of their position. So again, I've been a tenured faculty member for a long time, and for those of you who are tenured faculty members, I think you get used to being in the Senate, being able to say whatever you want to. But if you're a part-time instructor or if you're a classified employee, the feeling of security may not, well, I'm not saying it may not be, it isn't the same. Because if you are, say, part-time and you feel like you're expressing a viewpoint that is controversial, well, you don't have seniority. And although there may be processes, I understand the risk. And oddly enough, this came very much to my attention when I became a dean. Because, see, from the academic side, I thought that all the deans would feel comfortable expressing any viewpoint they want to in whatever form. But I came to see that there are educational deans, which is what I am, and there are classified deans. And the classified deans, like classified employees, may be fired on, I think it's a 30-day notice. And so, and by the way, I don't mention this elsewhere, but I've been asked to be the ACME. This is the ACME president. ACME is the Associated Cerritos College Management Group. It's like we meet and confer and do this sort of thing. And I was very aware early on that instructional deans like me, we feel free to say whatever we want to. But if you are a classified manager who reports not even to a dean but to another manager, to be able to speak truth to your VP is not so easy. So anyway, I'm sorry. My point is that communication really it requires work on the part of those who have official power to create environments in which all viewpoints are welcome, so that people can express ideas safely. And I've kind of gotten around this. I think the board sets the tone, and I think the board needs to model this behavior. And more to the point, I think that it's important for the board to require this, because I've looked through your policies. I don't recall the detail here, but I would think it's a matter of policy that I'm talking about board policies, that there are that one is supposed to have an open environment regarding communication. And there must be regulations which enforce this. And I think it is the duty of the board to ensure that the president and the other officers are following board policy in opening dialogue. And by the way, if it's not board policy, then here's another thing that the board can do. I think that this has to occur. I think that's the end of that answer.
Thank you.
Number 3, the majority of community college students need remediation. Recent actions have shifted the focus of Long Beach City College to a transfer institution. What do you think about this shift?
Well, I think the shift is wrong-headed. And part of my reason for saying this is because I taught in English for over 20 years. And there we teach both transfer and basic skills. And it's so obvious that our students come as they are with the needs that they have. And the mission of the colleges is focused on 3 main ways. There used to be a 4th, but lately we've been asked not to focus so much on lifelong learning, although I think it's quite important. I'm saying that like it or not, and I like it, we are tasked with transfer, with workforce training, and with basic skills, and this is our lot. And I think we, the people that I know, embrace this. When I first became an instructor in Cerritos College, and now this is over 20 years ago, in my English department, there was a bit of this culture I didn't like, in which those who taught the high-level courses felt somehow privileged, and those who are teaching more basic skills, were stuck. And that is completely the wrong attitude. All of these courses are required by our students and are essential. So I think what this shift does is it abandons our students because this is who they are. And I know there's a temptation to model a college like this on Santa Monica, say, or UCI. But the fact is that Santa Monica is near UCLA, and that accounts for its status, I guess, as transfer. And Orange Coast College, where I'm sorry, I meant Orange Coast College, where I taught as a part-timer for quite a few years, it's right next to UCI, and I mean, I honor transfer, and I like you, I'd want your students to go to the best school that they can get into. But transfer is only one of our goals. Remediation, basic skills is as important. And no less important is vocational education. I mean, from the point of view of the community, we wonder who's gone crazy here on this campus. And also, let me tell you, from the point of view of somebody who is an administrator now in a different college, we think, how did it screw up so badly here? I mean, this is not a badge of honor that you've lost 30-some instructors and that you've eliminated 11 programs. This is, I think, is a disgrace. You know, so like, you know, this. When I was an early tenured faculty member, I became aware that on my campus in the past there had been some hostility, I guess, between voc ed and the academic side. And this too strikes me as complete nonsense. You know, we are one college doing with our student body, and it's important for those students who want to be trained in photography through a vocational path to be able to have access to that. And it's important for those students who want to go to and have the fortitude and the talent to go to Harvard, that we enable that as well. We have a duty to the entirety of that mission. So I guess that's my answer there.
What would you do to enhance LBCCD's ability to provide quality jobs for its employees, which in turn leads to a stronger economy?
Well, I think one obvious thing is that you want to have at least regionally competitive salaries. And now, as you may have seen in the materials I presented to you, I was the president of the faculty union at Cerritos College. I was the founding president. And as probably you do too, when we were negotiating, we would gather the salary charts for all the surrounding colleges. And we didn't like including you because you were generally paid less well than we were, which made our argument harder. And you know, it's not that it's off that much, but you know, the only reason why I'd hesitate to go very far with this is I don't sound like I'm pandering, because obviously you want to hear that I can afford good salaries for me. But I think that this makes sense to me. We want to have people who, in order to have excellent programs, we have to have salaries which are competitive so that people would be attracted to this college given some of the options that they have. Now, Cerritos is sort of ballparkish where I'm close to. There are places such as El Camino where I think that the salaries might be a little bit better, or Santa Monica, and certainly in order to attract talent, you need to offer people good pay. I'd also like to see the college investing in leadership development. One of the innovations that the president of my college did was, which I think is a good one, she established a leadership academy which is open to employees of all categories. And they're kind of given an overview of the campus processes. And the main idea behind it is that classified instructors, classified employees, part-time instructors, chairs, deans, all are given the background and the knowledge to help them be more effective leaders, with the hope that when new positions arise within that organization, they'd be able to cultivate the talent there. And you know, I've touched on this a bit already, but I do think an important feature, well, I know you're asking for quality jobs. Well, I was going to say that I'd like to cultivate a warm and environment. But if you're talking about, if you're asking about quality jobs, I think it really is a matter of pay and reasonable assignment. Like for those of you who are classified, there are sometimes questions about whether or not you're in the proper category. And certainly that wants to be examined every so often and adjusted as appropriate. I'm sorry, I don't have much more to answer. I think appropriate salaries, a workload which is appropriate for that salary, leadership, opportunities, and then generally, that soft thing where I just would like this to be a place where people love to come to work because it's pleasant.
Thank you.
Question number 5. Please discuss your understanding of LBCCD's budget and budget reserves. What should be the top priorities for budget allocation? What experience do you have with budgeting, auditing, and/or accountability?
Okay, well, I think I'd like to take the second part of the question first. Just to share again with you some of my background. In about 2001 or so, I became involved in the effort to make my faculty unionized, and it was largely in that context. I've been dealing a bit with salary before that when we had a meet and confer process that's when I first began to look at budgets. But it was especially in the union context that I began to look at our local budget, and then also, because the budget is so affected by what happens in the state level, I began to look at those processes as well. And I'm not an accountant, but I realized that I have a really good sense of how money works and where the categories are. And I understand that sometimes I finally understood how the operating officer, the money guy, thinks. Because see, when I was in the union, it always appeared to me that there was more money than there was, and at my college, they would indicate that the reserve should be, say, 5%, but we always found that at the end of the year it was more like 7 or 8%, and you wondered how this happened. And so I realized that if you are the chief financial officer, just by nature of their jobs, they're thinking more conservatively than other people are. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be tucking away money, but they're thinking a little bit conservatively. And I know when I was in the union, I was thinking a little bit optimistically, and this accounted for some disparities in how we viewed overall what was available and possible. Then I became department dean, and I'm looking at the budget on I guess maybe in some ways a smaller level. I mean, I have control over my particular division. And like all things, this is the bad thing about the budget, is that so much of it is spoken for. Like on the state level, on the college level, and on my division level, the money that we actually have to work with is less rather than more. But the priorities would be, as I mentioned, on the one hand, competitive salaries and benefits. And I say this to all the union groups here, that certainly faculty should have competitive salaries, classified should have competitive salaries, part-timers. It's as I said already, it's hard to morally justify, how part-time faculty are paid. Another priority would be appropriate classroom technology or equipment. I'm not a major technologist, but I think that it's not simply that our faculty want the best or should have the best equipment that is available. It's that our students deserve that. and these priorities are these choices that are made at colleges are painful. Like in a meeting about a year ago, in which all the deans got together to provide our list of stuff we wanted for our divisions. In the science area, the dean wanted microscopes. Because the microscopes that were in use were about 20 years old, and they're okay. But as I thought about that, I thought how much of a failure that is for our students, because don't they deserve the best equipment? And you know, I mean, if somebody in the college wants to compare ourselves to Santa Monica, well, that might be a wealthier area. Wouldn't their students have microscopes that were like 5 years old? You know, don't we want to give our students the best? I'm sensitive to this in part because, like LBCC, where I work, it's primarily our students are people of color. And I'm cognizant, too, that there's a certain disparity here between what people in more affluent areas, which are also more white, are getting and what people here are getting. So this is why I think, you know, a high priority would be to put the best stuff that is possible in our classrooms. And it's for the faculty only secondarily. I mean, it's for the students. You know, when I became the dean, we have a forensics program, and we have a new instructor. I'm very excited because she really seems to be quite good. And she told me that they go to the events. My background is English, so I really didn't know much about speech, in which they compete. And some of their competitions require them to do an impromptu speech. And the people they're competing against had iPads, but our kids didn't. And I thought that was just shameful, because you know, and I don't know if this was the image, but I'm thinking, well, here their competitors are, you know, potentially from more affluent school. Perhaps there could be an ethnic thing here, and I want our kids, regardless of their background, to have the best stuff they possibly can have. And so now my forensic team, they've got their iPads. They don't have the Model 2. They've got the new one. They've got the Retina display. Because how can we say anything else? I mean, I do know how limited the budget can be, but our students should have the best that we can possibly give them. So that'd be one thing. And then strategic. I've written a note here. Something about strategic. Oh yeah. Strategic hiring. And by this I mean that where the resources are placed for the people that are hired have a great impact on the direction of this college. And I know this is an issue which is in the back of your minds, or the forefront of yours, because of these changes with the programs that have been cut. Because my wife teaches reading, I know that reading is getting a couple of people, and that's good for the basic skills side of things. Choices need to be carefully considered as to where the funding for new positions go, because these will have an impact on the nature of the college. And so when my wife was relaying to me some of the plans of where the new hires would go, nobody had to tell me. I hadn't heard at that point, but it's clear to me by these priorities, the college is looking at becoming a transfer institution, because you got rid of 33 jobs that were voc-ed, and then you're adding some to academic areas, and how does that match up unless this is a strategic decision? So I'm mindful that these would be a priority, and like I mentioned before, I think it's important for the college to, for all persons in the college, to understand and to embrace our mission. So I'd like us to see, I'd like this hiring to be well considered and to be consistent with the college mission. Thank you.
Question 6. Although Prop 30 was served to restore some money to the community college system, recent trends have disrupted public education in general and simultaneously opened the doors to privatization. What are your thoughts about these trends?
Well, you know, I know you don't ask this question here really, but I'm an old-fashioned Democrat, and I believe that it's funny to say this as if this is a statement, like, you know, but I believe in the ability of the government to do good, and I think that there is huge evidence to show that in the past the government has been able to intervene in ways that strengthen and empower and increase prosperity. And the idea of handing things off to private institutions, you know, I like that there can be competition in private sectors, but that doesn't mean that the need for quality public education is less than it has been in the past. You know, the question doesn't ask this in particular, but see, a trend that I've been following are these MOOCs, these massive open online classes, which do have a commercial element. That is, you get somebody of a great reputation, like from Harvard, and they record online their speeches, and then there's a broadcast so that 10,000 people can watch this all at once. And we're trying to figure out, not me, but people are trying to figure out how you, what's the word, I hate this word, monetize this, or how you make it so that the students who are taking these MOOCs can actually earn credit for this. And you know, I'm all for open access, but I think, so here's education on the cheap for people who are the most needy. It's a trend which I think undercuts our basic social contract, which is, at least I think our social contract is to provide opportunity for all. And, you know, I mean, this again gets to the core of the community college mission. The essence of it is that we provide the opportunity for people to live lives which are considered and thoughtful and that are prosperous. I think I think you are engaged in the task of saving lives. Students often who come to community colleges will see this as their road to a life of dignity and of reasonable prosperity, or not. So if you take this away in the interest of privatizing or through tricky means defunding, then I think we are destroying the most effective access that I know of for all people, for a life of dignity and prosperity.
My turn? Yeah. 7, since July 2010, President Oakley has been awarded a 4% annual pay increase, as well as, quote, reasonable expenses, end quote, including moving expenses, $2,500 mileage per month, and 8% STRS contributions. In that same period, over 200 staff have experienced reduction in force, 11 vocational programs have been discontinued, and 13 faculty have experienced reduction in force. LBCCD awarded a $20,000 pay increase to the executive vice president in fall of 2012. Similarly, while the number of faculty, staff, and students has declined since 2005, the number of administrators has risen. What is your stance with regards to the discrepancy between administrative increases and classroom staff and faculty reductions? What would you do to ensure that monies are restored into the classroom and administrative costs are reduced.
Well, it's unseemly for this to occur. I mean, aside from the pragmatic impact, it just seems, it seems, well, I use the word unseemly. It's a little embarrassing that, I guess what I would hope is that in a time of economic distress, as the whole state has been experiencing, the president would at least hold to his salary, and that the administration would at least hold to as efficient a core as it can efficiently work with. Again, informally, my wife has asked me to compare the administration here in terms of its size to that in my college, and you know, your college just has seemed a little fat when it comes to administration. I know, I think a couple of positions have been lost recently, but there was a time when I'm sorry if this is in error, but I think there was something like 11 VP positions, and at that point we had 3 or 4. No? And I mean, we don't want to encumber the administration by having too few spots, but on the other hand, to have something which is bloated at a time of such severe economic crisis is just plain inappropriate. And I would say further that this is exactly what the Board of Trustees should be looking at. You know, it's their responsibility to set an overall agenda and tone, and to understand and to enforce the priorities of the college. And the priorities of the college, it's students first. You know, everybody here, it's all about students. And a salary increase at this time of the scale you describe here for a couple of administrators, it's going to translate, you know, let me work out the numbers here. I mean, how many sections did you lose because of that? You know, there's going to be a number which, if you give me a little bit of time, and I'm not going to take it right now, be able to work out, but there's been something like maybe the loss of, well, let me put it this way. There have been a loss of a couple of vocational programs. You know, for the cost of these raises, you know, maybe it didn't have to be 11 places that were lost. And you know, this is where from, you know, where I'm working just across the way there, on the other side of the 605, you're wondering, you know, who's setting the priorities here? You know, who set that agenda? Because it certainly isn't something that I'd be proud of. You know, it's so that I know I'm stuck on that word unseemly, but it really seems sort of embarrassing to take a salary increase when you're telling 33 full-time faculty to go away. You know, now see at my college, for within the last, I think, 4-year period, we had two golden handshakes, and because we're under a similar sort of stress, and you know, frankly, if a faculty member who's on the high, full-time tenured on the high end of the scale, you know, they get, you know, they're earning a fair bit of money, and some of them can be given a financial incentive because they're toward the end of their career to maybe leave a little bit earlier than they're planning. I think that is a good thing. I mean, compared to telling 33 people that their jobs are just done with. You know, I was thinking about this morning, like the difference between getting a pink slip and getting a golden handshake. And see, the thing is that from the point of view of the Board of Trustees or a college president, you know, all of these things I'm mentioning now, these are options. You know, my college could have gone your way too, or your college could have done my way. There was no rule book saying you had to do it one particular way or another. And so somehow your president and your board of trustees said, well, in order for us to be efficient and lean, we're going to cut these programs out because look at all the money we're going to save. And those 33 people, I mean, I don't know the details of this, but what must that be to be fired compared to here's an extra $80,000, you know, thank you for your 30 years of service, but now maybe there are other things in your life that you can do. I mean, it's a completely different message. And, you know, and I know I've talked a little bit about these soft issues, like concerning really campus climate, but I think this is part of the campus climate, you know, where you have a place where your years of service are appreciated, and the program that maybe you've worked with as a newer or longer terming instructor, you put your life into, and one place that's go by. And I mean, these are within the power of a college administration to opt. You can go one way or the other. So I think I'm making it clear that I think that these were bad choices that were made. They were not necessary. And what would I do? Well, let's see. What's the cliche? The gate to the corral is open now. The horses are gone. Something of that sort. I wonder if in these 11 programs, if these can be restored on the one hand. And you know, I'd like to. I guess I'd like to talk some sense into some members of the Board of Trustees. Now, I assume that you'd be wanting and would be supporting somebody who knows how colleges work. And I'm assuming, too, that I'm not the only one who might have that kind of background. And I think that this is really needed, so whoever you endorse. See, because the colleges here, they're really strange in that we have a professional workforce that is, whose authority derives from an amateur elected board. And I don't mean this in a put-down kind of way, but whatever the qualifications are, what do they know about how college works? You know, so I think, frankly, you know, me or somebody else, it would be invaluable to have somebody who knows how it works. Because see, what I know is that there are options. So now, I don't know what occurred in closed session on your campus, but what I imagine is that the president described an ugly scenario. You're probably invoking the city of San Francisco College, you know, and saying that if we don't take this decisive action, then we too will lose accreditation. And, you know, if you don't know how the system works, I can see how you might fall for that. But if you do see how the system works, then you know that there are other ways to do this. There are much better ways. One of the Board of Trustees wrote a letter, I never get his name right, so I'm not going to attempt, in which he explained and provided justification in an open letter as to why these cuts had to occur. And he cited what groups were consulted. And they sound good. I think one was the Academic Council. And if you're outside of the system, then you think, well, that sounds like everybody I was talked to. But then I know that's not shared governance. So like I tried to indicate in the pre-questions that I was sent, it may be that every so often a program has lived its life out. And perhaps, unfortunately, resources need to be withdrawn from a program like that. But I think there needs to be a true shared governance process by which this is determined. You know, and by shared governance, I mean, for this kind of question, this would be primarily faculty driven. You know, and so unless you have faculty involvement in the entire process of how these programs are located, were identified for possible elimination, you don't have a process. So what would I do? I'd like to be able to explain how these systems work. And I think maybe I've ranted on that enough.
8, do you feel you have adequate knowledge about the collective bargaining process and employee rights? Do you support it? And please explain.
Okay, well, so the joke, and I know it's a cliche, is that, a couple of years ago, I became a dean, I went to the dark side. But before I went to the dark side, I was the founding president of the faculty union at my college. It's an AFT group. And it was quite important to me, by the way, that be a union that represented full-time faculty and part-time faculty. So part of the question is whether or not I understand it, and I absolutely do. I mean, I helped to form it, and I went to 3 or 4 AFT summer institutes and went to the conventions, so I understand that process really quite well. And both from that and just from being an instructor, I understand the evaluation process, and as well I understand the grievance process and how those procedures work. And do I support that? Well, I think from my background, which I do want you to consider. I mean, I do want you to bear in mind that, because see, if you support a successful candidate, you are making a guess that in the future, that person will also be of a mind that you can communicate with. So I think part of what I wonder if you're looking at is a trend. So I'd ask you to consider the projectile of a person who formed a union, who was the main person on campus, certainly not the only one, but very contentious with other faculty who were resistant to this, who obviously in principle I support the idea of unions. In fact, on the national scale, I think one of the problems our nation is facing is that unions have become weaker. Because although they have had certain flaws, they have been the main protector of basic, decent wages, and they have been the main counterforce to moneyed interest. So, am I for this? Yeah, absolutely, I'm for this. And sorry, there's a second part there. I understand it. I support it. My view actually is that unions are and should be recognized as a healthy part of any campus life, and even things which are potentially contentious, like grievances. I think we just need to recognize that in order for the campus to work well, we should have a well-functioning and secure informed and successful union. What I'm saying is that the college is better off if you are successful, because you are providing essential protections to the people you represent, which everybody here on campus, and you can provide a counterweight to potentially to the influence of the administration and to the Board of Trustees, frankly. And I think too that all the processes in which we undergo, such as evaluation and grievance, these which are potentially controversial or awkward, are better performed when you have an efficient union. Like I remember when I, as a union leader, was bringing the notion of a grievance, of a formal process to the negotiating table. The district seemed to be scared of this, but I thought, why would you be scared? It's just an overt, clear policy. In fact, I think everything is better when you have a clear, well-defined process so that everybody knows where things are. And so I would want you to have a clear and strong contract, and I would like you to have an appropriate support structure. You don't ask me this here, but then I'm not going to go very far in giving you an answer to this thing I just raised. But you do need to have sufficient time to do the research required. Like if you have a grievance officer, a certain amount of time needs to be devoted to that. If you have an effective faculty, full-time faculty president, the union, then that person needs to have sufficient release time to perform those duties, and classified the same as well. And I think it just benefits the entire institution.
What is your understanding of AB 1725 and shared governance?
Mhm.
Do you think collegial consultation should be extended to classified staff?
Okay, so, I misread this a bit, but the question's trickier than I thought. Because I was thinking, well, of course, classified staff should be part of the shared governance process. And collegial consultation, there are certain, I think the expression is terms of art. As you all know, the term shared governance doesn't appear in 1725, but there are things such as collegial consultation. And collegial consultation, I know you can't help me here, but I think this is what faculty have in regards to certain areas that they have the major part of control over. And the presumption with collegial consultation is that the opinion, the view of the faculty group prevails. So that if there's a disagreement, the administration has to really, back this up. And to extend that to classified employees, that's the trick. It would depend, I think, on the area of consideration. Like 1725 assigns to faculty and administration and to classified and to students a certain role in how decision-making occurs. And it provides a certain priority to faculty on what they call professional matters. So I know what this is about. And to extend this to classified in areas where they have special knowledge and impact, I think would be appropriate. So I'm trying to think of an example where that would occur. Because most of, as a faculty member, a former faculty member, I'm aware of what's called the 10+1, which are identify the 10 areas over which faculty have a dominant role. And this is unidentified as far as I know for classified. So I can't give you a complete candid answer with this because it's a new wrinkle, and I think this is an interesting proposal that should be explored. And my spin on this is this: here you have me, and this is what you would get. You would have somebody who would say, "Oh, well, you've heard me give speeches about stuff which I know you like, and here's something which is a little bit more controversial. I don't know what the answer is," and that's what I am. So I don't know. But here's the other part, and this I don't think you have right now. Let's talk about it. And that's what I have. I mean, that's one of the qualities which I think you desperately need. I mean, the whole room here is you need somebody that you can talk to, and I'll give you an answer. But see, as a dean, it's strange because mainly I'm a self-effacing shy man, but I'm very good as a dean. It's very strange because how does this work? And as a dean, you have to say no sometimes. And see, that's the funny part too. I do this quite easily. But I'm candid and open, so I need to hear the specifics. And I would need to understand the context. And then I'm thinking, well, does this encroach upon faculty prerogatives? And if so, is there some sort of compromise there? And that's how I'd proceed with this. I just need more information, then we can talk about it.
Okay, just to remind you,
Okay.
we have only about 4 more minutes, so
Okay.
would you have the courage and ability to explain and support an unpopular policy? How would you respond to other Board of Trustees, faculty, staff, students, or administrators who differ in opinion?
I guess it's just what I was saying. I don't understand it completely because I'm not a person you'd expect to be a faculty leader. My degree, I have a Master of Fine Arts, and I'm sort of a soft-spoken sort of guy. But the paradox is that I'm really good at this stuff, and there is, if I may here, I find that there's a zen to it when I do this, because if I were to be a tough, loud, in-your-face sort of leader, it would all fall apart. The strength of my leadership is only in my ability to open and to accept. It's very strange. And in this, I'm really very effective. And by this, by effective, I mean that I'm effective at creating agreement and harmony and acceptance of what the answer is. So that when the answer is one that people don't want to hear, the door is open and we can talk about it. And I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. I don't have 3 minutes left. I don't know why, but I can do this. I mentioned that I led the campaign to unionize, and that I think was more contentious than any board election is going to be. And it was contentious mainly because it was an infight among faculty. And the controversial issue, by the way, back you there, was whether or not we should include part-time instructors. And so I am forged. I have been in the fire in all categories. And for a person who is shy, there are certain things I'm afraid of. Like when I was a young man, I was afraid of talking to women. But I was never, as an older man, afraid to talk to the president. I mentioned briefly that I'm the current Acme president of my college, and so we do a meet and confer with the president. And I don't know why it is, but I'm good at that. I was talking. So you're asking me, can I talk to this person about something? What the managers wanted was something called vacation buyback, where if you get a certain amount of vacation, you can sell it back to the district. They lost it. And I persuaded the president to give it back to us in some form. And how I could do that, I don't know, but I'm able to talk to the president and to tell her, it's because it's nothing personal. It's really, I respect her, she respects me, and if it's something hard to say, if you're wondering if I can be in an argument, in a debate, I've been in the Senate, so I know what debates are like. I was a department chair, and I know too what those meetings can be like. I've been there, and see the core of it is really this. I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I am trustworthy, and I am reasonable, and I respect everyone, and I think that this is, that's the zen of it. It's like if I just think that it's my ego that's doing it, it's not. That it's only that people trust me, and that gives me great. It's how I work with the president. It's why was I able to make this progress when the previous Acme president failed? It's because she trusted me. Because she knows I'm not going to hit her in the back. She knows I'm just talking straight. And I think people respond to that. And so could I do that to the Board of Trustees? Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I've only seen them a couple of times, and I perceive what the problem is, and absolutely. There is no hesitancy there. I know you have some questions about political campaigning. Would this be the next phase? And I know we're out of time.
The issue is, we all agreed that we would give each candidate 60 minutes.
Right.
And we're at that time, so
Well,
we would have to do
I
this at a
understand.
different time.
Let me just concede that these next questions would be my weakest part. So I don't have a bunch of organization behind me, and I'm a newbie at this. So and I would give. You ask here, what are my odds? Well, I'd make an assessment, and if I think I could win, I'd run, and if I think my odds would be poor, then there'd be no point in my wasting my time or yours. And it's really just pragmatic. So I don't have much, back there. I got some personal money that I'd be throwing in, and I don't want to put that on tape because, but I can tell you off the record, or I can tell you, Catherine, maybe. Anyway, I don't want to take more time than your process allows, but I really do appreciate you allowing me to speak with you for a while.
And we appreciate you taking the time out today to speak with us and with some other candidates. And we'll be getting back with you in the near future and let you know what our decision is.
Great.
Thank you very much.